So this is called Madhu Pindika Sutta. Madhu is honey, something sweet. Pindika is a lump, a ball. So it's called Honeyball Sutta. So expect something sweet. Thus have I heard, on one occasion the Blessed One was living in the Sakyan country at Kapilavattu in Nigrodha's park. This is his hometown. Then, when it was morning, the Blessed One dressed and taking his ball and outer robe, went into Kapilavattu for alms. When he had wandered for alms in Kapilavattu and had returned from his alms round, after his meal, he went to the great wood, that is called Mahavana, great wood, from his alms round. After his meal, he went to the great wood for the day's abiding, and entering the great wood, sat down at the root of a bilva sapling for the day's abiding. Bilva is a fruit. I think he didn't sit under a mature tree. If a fruit falls, that's not good. So a sapling. Dandapani, the Sakyan. Dandapani means someone who has a pani, hand, with a danda, stick. That's a sign that he is a debater. So, debater. That he has mastered many skills and want to argue with other teachers. And he has never lost, except when he met the Buddha. Dandapani, the Sakyan, while walking and wandering for exercise, also went to the great wood, and when he had entered the great wood, he went to the bilva sapling where the Blessed One was, and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he stood at one side, leaning on his stick, and asked the Blessed One, "What does the recluse assert? What does he proclaim?" So the Buddha responds, "Friend, I assert and proclaim my teaching in such a way that one does not quarrel with anyone in the world, with its gods, its maras, and its brahmas, in this generation with its recluses and brahmins, its princes and its people, in such a way that perceptions no more underlie that Brahmin means a wise person here, who abides detached from sensual pleasures, without perplexity, shorn of worry, free from craving for any kind of being." So in other words, when he says in such a way that one does not quarrel with anyone in the world, that the Buddha did not want to argue with this person, but succinctly explained what he was teaching. And upon hearing this, Dandapani, the Sakyan, shook his head, wagged his tongue, and raised his eyebrows until his forehead was puckered in 3 lines. Then he departed, leaning on his stick. That means he did not understand what he just heard. Then, when it was evening, the Blessed One rose from meditation and went to Nigrodha's park, where he sat down on a seat made ready for him and told the monks what had taken place. Then a certain monk asked the Blessed One, "But, Venerable Sir, how does the Blessed One assert and proclaim his teaching in such a way that he does not quarrel with anyone in the world, with its gods, its maras, and its brahmas, in this generation with its recluses and brahmins, its princes and its people. And Venerable Sir, how is it that perceptions no more underlie the Blessed One, that Brahmin who abides detached from sensual pleasures, without perplexity, shorn of worry, free from craving for any kind of being? Monks, as to the source of through which perceptions and notions born of mental proliferations beset a man, if nothing is found there to delight in, welcome and hold to, this is the end of the underlying tendency to lust, of the underlying tendency to aversion, of the underlying tendency to views, of the underlying tendency to doubt, of the underlying tendency to conceit, of the underlying tendency to desire for being, of the underlying tendency to ignorance. This is the end of resorting to rods and weapons, of quarrels, brawls, disputes, recrimination, malicious words, and false speech. Here these evil, unwholesome states cease without remainder. That is what the Blessed One said. Having said this, he rose from his seat and went into his dwelling. No more explanations given by him. Then soon after he had gone, monks considered, now friends, he has risen from his seat and gone into his dwelling after giving a summary in brief, without expounding the detailed meaning. Now who will expound this in detail? Then they considered, the Venerable Mahakachana is praised by the teacher and esteemed by his wise companions in the holy life. He is capable of expounding the detailed meaning. Suppose we went to him and asked him the meaning of this. Then the monks went to the Venerable Mahakachana and asked him to explain the meaning of this. Friends, you should have asked the Buddha, he said. He then said, it's as though a man needing heartwood, seeking heartwood, wandering in search of heartwood, thought that heartwood should be sought for among the branches and leaves of a great tree standing possessed of heartwood. After he had passed over the root and the trunk, and so it is with you that you think that I should be asked about the meaning of this. After you pass the Buddha, by when you were face to face with him, knowing that he knows, he sees, and he is the vision, he is knowledge, he is the Dhamma, he is the Holy One, he is the Savior, the Proclaimer, the Elucidator of meaning, the Giver of the deathless, the Lord of the Dhammas, the Tathagata. That was the time when you should have asked the Blessed One the meaning, as he told you, so you should have remembered it. Surely, Venerable Kachana, knowing the Blessed One knows, seeing, he sees, he is vision, he is the Tathagata. That was the time we should have asked the Blessed One the meaning. As he told us, so we should have remembered it. Yet Venerable Mahakachana is praised by him, esteemed by his wise companions in the holy life. The Venerable Mahakachana is capable of expounding the detailed meaning of this summary given in brief by the Blessed One. Without expounding the detailed meaning, let the Venerable Mahakachana expound it without finding it troublesome. Then, listen, friends, and attend closely to what I shall say. Yes, friend. So they are all in addressing each other as friends because they are not meeting the Buddha here. So they are in kind of equal standing here. Venerable Mahakachana said this, friends, when the Blessed One rose from his seat and went into his dwelling after giving a summary in brief without expounding the detailed meaning, he said, I understand the detailed meaning of it as to be follows. So now the dependent arising again. Dependent on the I and forms, I consciousness arises. The meeting of the three is contact. With contact as condition, there is feeling. What one feels, that one perceives. So that is yang vedeti, what one feels. So up until then, with contacts as condition, there is feeling. And then the subject, the one, what one feels, come. This is something that Venerable Katukurunde Jnanananda has studied in his book. The objects change into having a subject in there. What one feels, that one perceives. So yang vedeti tan sanjanati, what one feels, that one perceives. What one perceives, yang sanjanati, that one thinks about. Tang vitakketi. That is when, so previously what one feels, that one perceives. What one perceives, that one thinks about. What one thinks about, that one mentally proliferates. With what one has mentally proliferated as the source, perceptions and notions born of mental proliferation beset a man with respect to past, future and present, from cognizable through the forms and present forms cognizable through the eye. Let me read that again. With what one has mentally proliferated as the source, perceptions and notions born of mental proliferation beset a man with respect to past, future and present forms cognizable through the eye. So this process goes on with the ear, nose, tongue, body and mind. Always run into the past, to the present or the future. It all started with dependent on the eye forms, eye consciousness arises. The meeting of the three is contact. With contact as condition, there is feeling. What one feels, that one perceives. What one perceives, that one thinks about. What one thinks about, that one mentally proliferates. With what one has mentally proliferated as the source, perceptions and notions born of mental proliferation beset a man with respect to past, future and present forms cognizable through the eye. You see the whole process of our responding, fighting, arguing, generally existing with the thoughts run into the past, dwelling here in the present, and sometimes to the future. All these are rooted in our experience of making a contact. Meeting of three things: eye, forms, eye consciousness. When these three things come together, there is a contact. And then it goes on with contact as condition, there is feeling. What one feels, that one perceives. What one perceives, that one thinks about. What one thinks about, that one mentally proliferates. With what one has mentally proliferated as the source, perceptions and notions born of mental proliferation beset a man with respect to past, future and present forms cognizable through the eye. So this also suggests that we never experience outside. We have an image of the outside that we experience, and based on that image we continue to express ideas and go to the past, stay in the present or go to the future. It's a scary thing to understand, but that is how we have been evolving. We think that there is an outside, but every millisecond, every second, it is what we have perceived that we continue to perceive as the Dhamma whole, as this thing, as that thing. And then we continue to, our perceptions evolve that way, and we proliferate. And with proliferations, a man goes into the past, future, and present through the forms cognizable through the eye. Dependent on the ear and sounds, dependent on the nose and odors, dependent on the tongue and flavors, dependent on the body and tangibles, dependent on the mind and mind objects, mind consciousness arises. So then that whole process, the meeting of the three is contact. This is about the mind, the last sense base. With contact as condition, there is feeling. What one feels, that one perceives. What one perceives, that one thinks about. What one thinks about, that one mentally proliferates. With what one has mentally proliferated as a source, perceptions and notions born of mental proliferation beset a man with respect to past, future, and present mind objects cognizable through the mind. So when all other five sense faculties are shut down, there is still the mind being active, and mind does make contact, and that the mind continues to proliferate. It can exist on its own. So then there is another section. When there is the eye, a form, and eye consciousness, it is possible to point out the manifestation of contact. When there is a manifestation of contact, it is possible to point out the manifestation of feeling. When there is a manifestation of feeling, it is possible to point out the manifestation of perception. When there is the manifestation of perception, it is possible to point out the manifestation of thinking. When there is a manifestation of thinking, it is possible to point out the manifestation of besetment by perceptions and notions born of mental proliferation. When there is the ear, a sound, and ear consciousness. When there is the nose, an odor, and nose consciousness. When there is the tongue, a flavor, and tongue consciousness. When there is the body, a tangible, and body consciousness. When there is the mind, a mind object, and mind consciousness. It is possible to point out the manifestation of besetment by perceptions and notions born of mental proliferation. When there is no eye, no form, and no eye consciousness, it is impossible to point out the manifestation of contact. In other words, this is talking about the cessation. When there is no manifestation of contact, it is impossible to point out the manifestation of feeling. When there is no manifestation of feeling, it is impossible to point out the manifestation of perception. When there is no manifestation of perception, it is impossible to point out the manifestation of thinking. When there is no manifestation of thinking, it is impossible to point out the manifestation of besetment by perceptions and notions born of mental proliferations. It goes on to say, when there is no ear, no sound, and no ear consciousness, when there is no nose, no odor, and no nose consciousness, when there is no tongue, no flavor, and no tongue consciousness, when there is no body, no tangible, no body consciousness, when there is no mind object, and no mind consciousness, it is impossible to point out the manifestation of besetment by perceptions and notions born of mental proliferation. Friends, when the Blessed One rose from his seat and went into his dwelling after giving a summary in brief without expounding the detailed meaning, that is, as to mental proliferation beset a man, if nothing is found there to delight in, welcome, and hold to, this is the end of the underlying tendency to lust, of the underlying tendency to aversion, of the underlying tendency to views, of the underlying tendency to doubt, of the underlying tendency to conceit, of the underlying tendency to desire for being, of the underlying tendency to ignorance. This is the end of resorting to rods and weapons, of quarrels, brawls, disputes, recrimination, malicious words, and false speech. Here these evil unwholesome states cease without remainder. I understand the detailed meaning of this summary to be thus. Now, friends, if you wish, go to the Buddha and ask him about the meaning of this. And as he explains it to you, so you should remember it. Very humble statement. Then the monks, having delighted and rejoiced in Venerable Mahakaccana's words. So Mahakaccana is the foremost among those who can expound things to the other monks. There were many monks who could do this, like Sariputta, Moggallana, but Mahakaccana had the highest rank in that skill. You can see how easily he went into details. He knew exactly what the Buddha meant. So, having delighted, Mahakaccana's words rose from their seats and went to the Buddha and paid homage to him, sat down to one side and explained what had happened. And the Buddha said, Mahakaccana is wise, monks. Mahakaccana has great wisdom. If you had asked me the meaning of this, I would have explained it to you in the same way that Mahakaccana has explained it. Such is the meaning of this, and so you should remember it. When this was said, Venerable Ananda said to the Blessed One, so Ananda is the attendant monk of the Buddha, listening to all these conversations. Venerable Sir, just as if a man exhausted by hunger and weakness came upon a honeyball, wherever he would taste it, he would find a sweet, delectable flavor. So too, Venerable Sir, any able-minded monk, wherever he might scrutinize with wisdom the meaning of this discourse on the Dhamma, would find satisfaction and confidence of mind. Venerable Sir, what is the name of this discourse on the Dhamma? As to that, Ananda, you may remember this discourse on the Dhamma as the Honeyball discourse. That is what the Blessed One said. The Venerable Ananda was satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. So, thanks to Dandapani asking that question, we have this beautiful teaching, MN18, the Honeyball. And this is kind of pointing at anusayas, underlying tendencies. So they are like saya. Saya means they are sleeping, that they wake up. What wake up? There are these things that can wake up. Lust, conceit, aversion, underlying tendency to views, that means grasping as I, me, myself, of the underlying tendency to doubt. So that's a fetter, vichikiccha. That's also a hindrance. Right? Is that a fetter? Yeah. Yeah, that's a second fetter, doubt. And of the underlying tendency to conceit, that's a big fetter, conceit. I guess it has something to do with, thinking that I am an anagami, I am a sotapanna, I am this, I am that, I am a stream winner, I am a once returner. That's kind of spiritual materialism. Yeah. There was this Sri Lankan lady who went to a retreat, and in that place they give a certificate that you are a anagami, like non-returner. You are a non-returner, you are a once returner, you are a stream winner. So she went 5 years after receiving a non-returner certificate, and the monk forgot what he told earlier, and he gave him a certificate that you are a stream winner. That's lower than the rank she received. She got furious. How come you give me a stream winner having given me a non-returner before? And that moment she realized that she didn't have any of those. So if somebody gives you a certificate, don't trust it. this is going to put you into a state of conceit that is a burden for you. If you, they say, if you're an arahant, never tell anyone, right? Because you'll have to prove it for the rest of your life. Behave in such a way an arahant behaves. So it's good to just, show it with your example, that you have such a conduct, such a behavior, such wisdom. And anyone can give you these titles, but you are not going to be moved by those. Because you see the true nature of things, and you have seen the cessation of things like this. Even the underlying tendency. We will read the 148 tomorrow. Majjhima Nikaya 148. That's going to be just a reading, not a Dhamma talk, because immediately after that you will want to sit and meditate, because it's a very powerful sutta. And Sister Kema had memorized it, and many monks and nuns like to memorize it because it's very helpful, and that every time that teaching is given, there has been arahants being produced as a result of that teaching. 60 arahants, or it has a number 6 associated with it, 6 sets of 6, so it is called. And it's about similar content, but in a very nicely detailed way that you can understand how the dependently arisen nature work and how the cessation happens, and how also the underlying tendencies work and their cessation take place. So an underlying tendency, you can understand it with a pleasant feeling. With a pleasant feeling, when you are dealing with a pleasant feeling, if you are not mindful enough, that you get attached to the pleasant feeling, especially if it invites sensual desire. And when you can't have it, or when there is an unpleasant feeling, something that you dislike, you reject it. That is aversion. You are not totally angry, but it's a root where aversion arises. You don't like the way these things are happening. So that invites a kind of language that separates you from loving kindness, and that you can't be quiet anymore. So you speak, and the moment you speak, there is division, there is chaos, quarreling and fights. So that takes us to this other sutta that I mentioned to Sam, that I will speak about. It's just a summary of it. I'm not going to keep you here too long. That this sutta is called Dubbanya Sutta. Dubbanya means ugly something, ugly someone who is... I'm not looking at anyone. When Bhupali was laughing at it. So, there was this yakka, that is an evil spirit, very powerful spirit, whose food is anger. So he was known as the Koda Bhakka. Koda means anger. Bhakka means eating. Anger eating yakka, demon. And his food is anger, so he always looked for that kind of food. This one time, he thought he would go and sit in the throne of the Sakka. So, yakka going to Sakka's heaven. Sakka is the leader of the heaven. Sakka means the capable one. He did a lot of loving kindness. As a result, he became the leader of heavens. and he was on business doing some other work. He was not there in his throne, so Yakka went and sat there in his throne. And Sakka's retinue and helpers saw that this Yakka had come and sat on the throne of the Sakka, and they were not happy. They wanted to push this guy away and started yelling at him, saying, this is the Sakka's throne. Nobody sits there. No one deserves to sit in his throne. Go away. So the more they said these words, he got handsome. Yakka got handsome and bigger, filling the entire room. And so they didn't know what to do after this. They went and reported this to Sakka. Hurry, we have a situation here. And Sakka came back and came to his place and realized what had happened. So he knelt down and put one knee down and put joined palms like this, and asked, "Sir, welcome to my place. How can I help you? Can I make some cappuccino for you? Espresso for you?" he asked. So when he was kind and asked these questions, Yakka got smaller and smaller. He could no longer stay in the place where there was loving kindness, so he had to disappear. In your families, there are Yakkas and Sakkas. You need to not feed when somebody is angry. It's like that lady that went to a doctor and said, my husband gets angry all the time and I can no longer live with him. And the doctor said, there's an easy fix for this. Every time he gets angry, you put some water into your mouth and just keep it in your mouth. It's called swishing, right? Keep it in your mouth quietly. And she did that, and 2 weeks later she went to the doctor and said, how can water do it? Every time he gets angry, I put some water in my mouth and I keep it in my mouth, and his anger goes away. How can water do it? The doctor said, it's not water doing it, it's you keeping your mouth shut. That helps him to overcome his anger. So this is it's a similar story like the Dubbaniya Sutta. There's another short sutta that's in the Samyutta Nikaya as well. This is called Sedaka Sutta. I mentioned it to one of you, and in Sedaka Sutta we learn a very good lesson of loving kindness. So there were these two acrobat performers. One is a teacher. The student girl was the pupil. She was called Medaka Talika. That was her name. And they performed in front of a huge crowd, and they were very successful performing with no mistakes. So people liked their performance and gave a lot of rewards. And they decided that this is how we will perform from now on. But because this was a dangerous stunt, the teacher told the student that you protect me and I will protect you. And the student said, no, that's not how it works. I will protect myself, you protect you. And the teacher said, that's what I meant. So the Buddha heard this conversation through someone and wanted to make it a point to teach to monks. Monks, you protect yourself. By protecting oneself, you protect others. By protecting others, you protect oneself. And how do you protect oneself and how do you protect others? Patience is how you protect others. Loving kindness is how you protect others. Not being cruel to someone is how you protect others. And caring, that is how, anudeta, caring, that is how you protect others. When you cultivate these qualities, patience, loving kindness, not being cruel, and caring, you are protecting others and you are protecting oneself. So this is like COVID time. You protect yourself and you protect others, like wearing a mask and doing those things. The mask then has to be your loving kindness. And hand washing, like washing away cruelty. And keeping distance, like, you can say it's like patience. And what else, that is caring. So maybe when you are attending to someone who has COVID, providing them with food, that is caring. So this way, in any communal setting where you live with other people, we learn these qualities and bring such teachings to your mind, and that becomes part of your practice. It is in this person that you see your growth. When they improve or when they don't improve, your mind remains the same. It will be swaying and swaying, and then it comes to a resting state, like a pendulum. And it doesn't bother you. The swaying doesn't bother you. And people doing the same mistake again and again doesn't bother you. And that's how you grow children. You allow them to make mistakes, and you don't infuse cruelty their heart, fear to their heart, anger to their heart. It's a very delicate thing that parents can do. If one parent is upset with the other parent, you don't bring that in front of children. Why? Because they will learn it from you. The best thing a father can do is to praise the mother in front of children. The best thing a mother can do is to praise the father in front of children. That way, the generational wounds heal. That's what wise parents can do. You see. So this way also you can see Dhamma ends quarrels, fights. What did you do? You only radiated Brahma Viharas. And you protected your heart. And you brought these precious things closer to your heart. And occasionally you will find it very difficult that someone tests your patience. You say, nothing tests my patience than my this, that, or whatever. Technology sometimes. And people smash their cell phones when they are angry, and then they go and repair it. They pay money to repair it. They don't realize that this is a pattern that keeps building that kind of energy in their hearts and minds. So it's good to distance, but in a way that is respectful, in a way that is loving, in a way, even when you are quiet, it's not because you are angry. You don't do that. It is to really, it's a loving presence that you give, that you do the things that you have been doing, like making tea or anything else. But if suffering is intense, you can actually protect yourself by separating yourself from such a dangerous environment, which is self-care. You don't have to put up through that kind of suffering. That way you can just allow the person to grow without you. They are not fortunate enough to have you, unfortunately. That way you protect your heart and you value your life, and you cultivate these qualities with the remaining people that you have, that you can surround your life with and grow with, that they appreciate your presence, they love you for who you are, and that way you learn that friendship is nibbana in them. That you have a kind of relief when you associate with such people. That's why we do forgiveness meditation. Some of you need to do it so that you can forgive and heal and move on and build that life you deserve. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to be loved, and you deserve to be cared for. So that's all. Any questions? That's all for tonight.
I have a question.
Yep.
So you mentioned in the story earlier about them referring to each other as friends, but the Buddha was, I guess, viewed as a teacher. I'm curious if the Buddha can be also seen as a friend when we talk about like friendliness, and how that compares to when you go into like the impersonal qualities.
Yeah.
But still, like the Buddha is a friend. Like you, just because the Buddha is my friend doesn't mean I don't respect the teachings. For example, like I feel like if I was friends with the Buddha, I would have more trust and in what he's saying. But how that the balance between the Buddha is my teacher, the Buddha is my friend. That's my question.
Yeah, people can see him as a friend, but out of respect, they tend to not. But seeing him as a friend, as the person with the highest kalyana mitta qualities, like kalyana means pure, mitta is a friend. So he is the first spiritual friend that started all these, established a community, and went to visit these monks again and again, especially in Arya, like Noble Quest Sutta, Arya Pariyesana, and Mahasacchaka Sutta. In those suttas, you see that when he went to see the 5 friends before who assisted him in his work of self-mortification, they were the remaining ones who were still alive. So he went to help them. He sat with 2 and 3 others went on alms round. And then he sat with 3 and 2 others went on alms round. So that is how close he was to them, to make sure that they understood what he was teaching. But those discussions are lost. Ananda wasn't there to record them. He wasn't even there at the time. But main teachings, the teachings are there, and he also taught that these 4 things help you become a stream winner. One is associating with the spiritual friends. The other is listening to teachings, and the third one is wise attention and following the teachings. So he pointed out there that spiritual friendship is essential in attaining the goals. So taking the Buddha as a friend/teacher, if you still have the respect toward him, that's a great thing to do. And he is also seen as the mother, Buddha Mata. He is the father, Buddha Pita. So that is out of respect that people use that language to show respect and gratitude to him. And Buddha sometimes would address someone as a foolish person. That is the harshest way he would blame someone. He would put someone in the straight path for their wrong views sometimes. But that is how far he has gone in terms of teaching and offering the right view to someone. And taking him as a friend, it's up to you, as long as you feel comfortable. With teachers in general, one time I interned at Wisdom Publications as a Pali scholar in Somerville, where I used to live. And I chat with Daniel Aitkins, the director. We were having tea outside, and he said this nice thing about teachers. Teachers, he said, is like fire. If you get too close, you get burnt. If you are too far away, you don't feel the effect of the fire. So there's a very delicate distance that you need to maintain with teachers. So in order to become a good student, you need to turn off that fault-finding mind. It's called Randa Gavesi Hoti. When a teacher gives teachings, you develop like a fault-finding mind. That's not friendliness. You can come to friendliness and discuss in a way that is so sweet, that help, because there's something to learn from every teacher. That is how I look at teachers. And they also go through their own sufferings. Anyway, that's adding more to what you asked. So, other questions, Ryan?
What are devas and nagas? You say in there.
Yeah. Devas are the divine beings in 6 heavenly planes. Nagas are similar mighty beings. Naga means giants. Naga is also a word they use for arahants, enlightened monks, and Naga is also a word they use for snakes, and Naga is used for tuskers, huge elephants. So mighty beings that are very powerful, they can be disguised as human beings. That had happened, and they were ordained one time, and at least one time, it's recorded in the Vinaya, that's the disciplinary code of monks, that he was ordained and at night he let himself be a naga. So one time a monk visited and saw a snake in that cabin, huge snake filling the room, and he got scared. So up until now, when a monk is receiving full ordination status, from novice status to a higher status, this question is asked, are you a naga? And if you say yes, then you will not be given full ordination. So nagas also depend on our merits, and therefore we transfer merits to them. And they also have a relic of the Buddha. One of the 4 truth relics of the Buddha is with them. One is in Sri Lanka, one is in the Naga world, and 2 others in 2 other places. So they respected the Buddha, they have right view, so we know that they depend on our merit, so we share our merits with them. Mighty beings. Sheila? Her hand...
Just a quick follow-up.
Yeah.
Why are nagas not allowed to be monks? Like, are they
Not allowed?
to be full monks?
Because they are not humans. That they can be disguised as humans, but they are not human in the human plane. That can create problems in the actual order of monks. Practical issues. Yeah. So, yeah.
My question is, if let's say you don't have perception, like the
Yeah.
dependent origins, and you don't have how do you have memories then? Like when you stop having perception, how will you?
In that instant you don't, but afterwards they come back. They are there. Memories, and we do continuously perceive, and it is only the perceptions of lust, hatred and delusion that get removed, eradicated by seeing with wisdom. Not everything gets deleted, then we won't be here. Like memories also, you like grief, memories, these things, you grow around them. If you delete them or remove them, you are deleted, like you no more exist. So it's important to have them. That's why when my mom, because she had some episodes of mental health challenges, she went through ECT therapy, and we are her memory. We need to bring certain memories to her. So now they understand that that kind of intensive electric convulsion therapy, they don't always administer it unless there is a very specific reason. So memories are not gone. This is also a question about past karmas. They are conditionally, as we are reborn, is neither the same person nor a different person. It's again, as you see how fast this dependent arising happens with eye, ear, nose, tongue, body and mind, that process continues in rebirth process too. Like the monk Sati was taught this in Chula Malunkyya Putta Sutta, that he held the view that it's the same person, goes from one birth to another. So the Buddha taught dependent arising to show him that haven't I taught you in many ways that consciousness is dependently arisen. Memories also have the same, I would say, philosophy behind it. So they don't get deleted. Your memory gets better when you meditate. Some suttas teach that you, because you are no longer under the influence of 5 hindrances, your memory gets sharpened. Things that you could not remember, things that happened way back, come to your mind. And that is how you can visit past lives. When your mind is so malleable and ready for that kind of direction, you can visit previous lives. So memories are never gone that way. Anita.
This might seem like a strange question, but I've been wondering about it the last few talks. If someone was born without being able to see or hear or smell, then would they have the possibility of a very high consciousness because they wouldn't be able to have these senses to make these?
No, because for high consciousness concept, I think it matures with the abilities that you accumulate through sensing, experiencing the world and perceptions. Some people develop skills when they have blindness, that they have more ability to perceive things. That is a special case, but not always that they develop that skill. And yet they are still in the cycle of birth and death, so there is ignorance and karmic effluence and influence remaining with them. Therefore, when they get a good birth with all good conditions, they can develop their wisdom. Yeah. Many hands are up. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know which one, so maybe you.
Okay, so
Lisa.
if cruelty is just part of this impersonal process, then is also love?
Everything is part of the impersonal process. It's us who put a person into it and grasp as I, me and myself. I want this person forever in my life. Yeah. So yes, love also is conditionally arisen. I'd go to Thomas.
I was curious about the jhana planes. Those different worlds. Is like the first jhana, everyone just experiencing the first jhana, same for the second, third, fourth. How do those kind of relate to everything?
What is everything? Like the world?
Yeah, I guess I think I was reading in one of the posters, like if you attain, say, fourth jhana, you're reborn in the fourth jhana plane.
What?
Brahmaloka.
It's a plane of existence that correspond to the mental state that you cultivated, which is mindfulness, equanimity purified by mindfulness, and so your mind is experiencing a very high level of Sukha, happiness, with so much equanimity in it, very balanced state, everything settled. So you have a corresponding birth in Rupa Jhana realms. I guess they are called Brahmalokas, but I'm not so sure. Yeah, you can look at the chart. We tell people not to read unless we recommend things. His hand was up. Okay, yeah, Sam.
What I'm hearing you say with the Buddha and the friendship is that by following his teachings, that is how I would become his friend. And there's a healthy distance with, if he is like a fire, that is like a harmonious distance with the teacher.
Yeah.
So there's a good, like a balance in that relationship of when I'm close and when I'm far away. And what that makes me think of is when you're in a relationship with someone, even if you love them very much, you still need alone time, because you'll drive each other crazy if you're always like. So that's how I understand the relationship with the Buddha or a teacher is he's helping me when I need that, and then I kind of help myself, and then there's like a play with that. So I was just clarifying that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. He said the way to see him is to see the dependent arising. When you see dependent origination, you see the Buddha. And if anyone wanted to see, like Vakkali was obsessed with the image of the Buddha, how he looked. And the Buddha said, what's the use of looking at this filthy body? Vakkali was very upset when he got sick that he could not see the Buddha. Like he wanted to sit right in front and absorb that beauty of the Buddha as he perceived. And Vakkali was visited by the Buddha when he was sick and was told, it's like saying you die or you survive. It's like just give up the idea of looking at this body and develop your mind to go beyond those perceptions. So that way you can be a friend with the Buddha. And the Buddha says that I give directions, but people don't follow. I ask them to go to south, they instead go to west. So what can I do? He says. So as long as you are following his teachings and seeing the Buddha through these qualities, you are a friend to him. Yeah. No question.
You mentioned in the commentary about Nagas the transition from a novice monk to an advanced monk. I was just curious, how does that happen? Like, are there milestones?
Yeah. So a novice monk keeps 10 precepts, and he gets the training and learn 227 rules that are to be observed by monks, and their restrainment process when they make mistakes, how they do recitations, and they go to the community of monks, and every fortnight they do these recitations. And in Sri Lanka we go through some memorizing work to do. We have to memorize Dhammapada, all the verses. So in my cohort, I had memorized the most, and I had to be the first one to be ordained in that group. So I became, although I was ordained after some monks, I was fully ordained before them. So I was placed as first when with the seating arrangements for monks afterwards, ever since. So there is that process. We memorize some chantings also, like as many chantings as you can. And what you do is you go to the chief prelates who give you the full ordination, and your relatives and everybody go, teachers, hundreds of people will go. So from south of Sri Lanka to Kandy, we belong to this Siam fraternity. And then they ask, in front of all these people and monks, they ask questions, and they start chanting or a verse, and you have to finish it. Then they grant full ordination after making you recite certain formal statements. And after that, you are no longer a novice monk, you are a senior monk, and you sit in the order of seniority afterwards. So you observe rules, and you belong to the Bhikkhu Sangha, not Samanera Sangha. Samanera is a novice Sangha. And so that's how that process works. And someone has to understand why they need full ordination, and how that can work for them. The whole purpose of these rules is to really have a convenient life, and for the convenience of other monks, so that because of every monk following the same rule, it's the same way everywhere. And when the Buddha passed away, he said little and minor rules can be adjusted. But after 3 months, there was a council, and all the Arahant monks, the enlightened monks, decided that no, we are not going to change anything, because they already saw that monks were doing anything they liked. They didn't want that to happen that soon. So rules remain the same, except that socially things have evolved, and from those days to now, some of the practical issues come when you try to live according to these rules, because they belong to a certain time period, like 2500 years ago these rules were laid out. So now, so sometimes monks have introduced new ways of living. Like, for example, rains retreat. Monks believe that you should keep it even when like during the rain season, monks could not travel. So monks still traveled, because there was no rule for monks to not travel. And other traditions stopped traveling. They didn't want to step on worms and new sprouts. But because Buddhist monks were still wandering, the blame came to them. And it was reported to the Buddha, and the Buddha said, monks, don't travel, stay in one place. And then monks stayed in one place, and people supported them, but they didn't teach. So then the blame came from lay people that we bring them food, but they are like pigs eating. They don't, exactly, that's the word they use. Pigs and deer staying in one place, they don't teach. And the Buddha said, monks teach. That's how teaching was emphasized, especially in those 3 months. So monks stay in one place and teach. But now it has not become, it doesn't rain here in in that season. So there are some monks who observe it in the winter. So they stay in one place in the winter and travel in the summer, so they can teach. So in those 3 months of rain, practicing is emphasized. excuse me. Thank you. Practicing and also teaching. So it says in the Chinese Agama, that is the Chinese canon that is preserved, that Rahula was the son of the Buddha. Rahula wanted to do solitary practice. And he went to the Buddha and said, I'm ready for solitary practice. Buddha said, go teach 5 hindrances, then come back to me. And Rahula said, okay, I did teach 5 hindrances. The Buddha said, you are still not ready to go do solitary practice, go teach 5 aggregates. And then this went on, go teach dependent origination, go teach the Eightfold Path, go teach the 37 factors of awakening. So he did all that. And then when he finished, the Buddha said, now you go and reflect on what you taught. That is your object of meditation. That's how he trained Rahula. But that account is not recorded in the Theravada canon. It's found in the Chinese canon. Now things are coming together, becoming global Buddhism, so all these pieces are coming together. Anyway, I guess that's a good place to stop and share merits. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.